and I'm going to take that W, and I'm going to enjoy this Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you and all your families and everybody out there. I'm going to enjoy this.
As you should, Dan Campbell. And as I hope everyone has on this wonderful, happy Thanksgiving here in America, Dan Hanzus, Marc Sessler, heeding that call live Thursday night to discuss the NFL triple header, the John Madden Thanksgiving. Mark, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. I saw some social media content of you carving up a beautiful giant turkey at your abode. So I know that you're doing quite well yourself, I would imagine.
It's been a long day.
Yeah.
It's a day that began with, last evening, my buddy Bob from Throwback Pod and his family came and stayed the night, and we went out last night and tied one on. Like the old days, Thanksgiving Eve style. But then this morning happens, and we had like a flag football game in the town where a bunch of the kids and dads were playing. So, that's kind of an early start after a late night for old people. And then you got to roll through this long day, Thanksgiving, and then this job closes it. So if you hear, if I sound a little croaky right now, it's because I will be probably in my bed about 24 minutes after the conclusion of tonight's podcast. And yet, Mark, it's very exciting, and I am very thankful that we have this platform, and we're going to talk about these three games that were played today.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I sent a message to you and Justin, our wonderful producer, this morning that, we've done this for 10 plus years, these Thanksgiving engagements, and sometimes it's been the next morning and sometimes it's been the night of, but now we're doing it live on the night of. And I did feel something this morning about the fact that this past 6 months, 7 months has been a journey. Let's be real about that. Not always a rose garden, but here we are. And I felt different watching these games today. And there's a lot to discuss coming out of them, but I'm glad to be discussing it with the two of you.
Yes. The other person, of course, is Justin Graver, the Grave Digger.
Our producer, who I adore.
Yes.
Just adoration.
Can I
say one other thing to Justin?
Yeah.
By the way?
Is that my cue to talk?
Well, I guess as we're watching that countdown,
Yeah.
I kind of forget that it's a countdown to our show. I feel like it's like a launching to something else that I'm sitting to wait and watch, and it's I feel this sort of these nerves and this beauty coming as it's getting from 1 minute down to 28 seconds, and we understand how numbers work, so it's coming down to 0 seconds, and it's whoa, this is starting, then it's whoa, it's us now, we're here. Hello.
All right, Mark, thank you for that. Justin, how are you, Justin?
I'm great, Dan. Had a nice Thanksgiving here in LA with Jessica. We cooked a meal that would have fed probably 10 people, so we'll be eating Thanksgiving for a week or so, but it was great.
All right, beautiful. And everybody celebrating, watching and listening to the show, happy Thanksgiving, and people overseas. Some people, it's a tradition in some circles over in the UK and beyond, Mark, to do a Thanksgiving feast, the football fans out there. So those of you that did that, I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I'd say Justin, maybe, portion plan a little bit more, with a little more detail.
Wasteful.
Why are we having 10? Why are we making food
real
for
shame.
10 people? Right.
Well, all the recipes for sweet potato casserole and obviously a turkey is the smallest turkey we could get. Whatever. Yeah.
Let's get into it. Let's start with let's go in order of the games as they were played, Justin. So sound me up. It's the three games. We're gonna hit them all, and then we're gonna disappear into the night. Let's start with what went down in Ford Field. That delay was Justin in a stone cold panic. It's live, baby. Oh, the Detroit Lions. They weren't at their very best in this game, and the injuries are starting to mount, and that's something to keep an eye on. But what they continue to do is win 23-20 over the Chicago Bears, snapping a 8-game losing streak on Thanksgiving for the Lions. So got that monkey off their back, and they moved to 11-1. Very important because everyone else, except for the Bears in the NFC North, keeps winning. So the Packers get it done, and on the Bears side, let's start with what everyone is talking about. Okay,
Yeah.
So The Bears are absolutely creamed in this game in the first half, and it's going kind of basically to script how many people thought this would be a one-sided affair. But to Chicago's credit, they rebound in the second half, and Caleb Williams rebounds in the second half. He throws 3 second-half touchdowns, 2 to Keenan Allen, 1 to DJ Moore. And with 3:31 to play, the Bears get the ball back at their own 1-yard line, and then they start driving. And it's crazy. I mean, the Lions team that has almost reveled in blowing people out of their building, it looked like that's what was going to happen. And yet here are the Chicago Bears riding a long losing streak, looking like they're about to shock the world. They take it all the way to the Lions 25. Then the drive kind of stalls out. Williams gets sacked. There's at the 41-yard line, 32 seconds left. It's 3rd down and long. They have a timeout in their back pocket. And then the unthinkable, if you're a Bears fan. And that's saying something for Bears fans who have watched a lot of games go down to the very end and end always against them. Tick, 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 tick. Caleb Williams doesn't call timeout. And I'm watching this with Bob as we're cooking the turkey in the backyard. I'm watching on the TV. I'm saying, call timeout, call timeout, call timeout. Tick, 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 call timeout. Do something. Okay, if you're not calling timeout, hike it. Tick, tick, tick. And what happens? It goes down to about 5 seconds before he finally calls hike. He heaves one downfield, incomplete, no chance of a reception there. Time runs out. They lose the game. And after this game, and so, Mark, it can't happen. We know it. It can't happen. Somebody's got to take control there. You got a rookie quarterback that didn't handle it well, but you got a head coach whose job is to protect the rookie quarterback in those situations. Here's Eberflus after the game on the mismanagement of the clock.
At the end, when you saw the clock tick down under 10, why didn't we call timeout?
Yeah, so right there, we liked the play that we had, and we were hoping that he was going to call it or get the ball snapped, and then we would have called timeout right there. But once it's under 7 there, then you call timeout there, then you're basically throwing the ball to the end zone because once it's under 12, you can't throw it inside with no timeout. And it was 3rd going into 4th, so that's a big deal. So it was 3rd going into 4th. That's why we wanted to preserve the timeout.
Okay.
Look, I get the latter part of that with the time. They were put in a bad place, but I want to say one thing, that some of the reporting coming out of when they fired Shane Waldron and brought in Thomas Brown was that the uptick in the offense had to do with Thomas Brown communicating with his quarterback and getting plays in quicker. And when you go watch this, I went and watched this 3 or 4 times, and after the sack especially, the Lions, there's a bunch of Lions in the backfield, and the Bears are trying to get set and get going, and Caleb, a rookie quarterback, for as talented as he might be, is like in this situation for the first time in his pro career. All chaos is breaking loose, and it's like, okay, cool. It's like for me, it's a classic, like there must be a second shooter. You can blame Caleb Williams, you can blame Matt Eberflus, but it's a complete breakdown of the Bears' communication system in general. They failed to get the job done, and to me, it's like that is completely inexcusable. It's completely inexcusable. These are the things. The first thing that came to mind is that on Monday nights, when I watch the Manning cast and it's Bill Belichick for the first entire half of the game talking with Peyton Manning, it's all situational football, and I sit and listen because I'm not the Kaiser Soze on that. I'm not the master. That I listen and I learn, and that doesn't happen with a team that properly practices and communicates. You've already fired the offensive coordinator. You've got a second one in there. You've got a rookie quarterback, and so you can say it should have been on Caleb Williams. Matt Eberflus is the head coach. You've got to control this situation. That whole thing ticked down and utter chaos is breaking, and you had a chance to at least tie the Lions, and instead it flutters away. And so for me, I need multiple fingers to point at multiple people because this was a systematic breakdown of the Chicago Bears and a chance to change their season. Instead, you're on an island game that's going to get you fired.
Yeah, 26 seconds elapsed from the time Williams was sacked to when the ball was snapped for the final play, and Williams had called a timeout earlier in the drive, but he said after the game that he wasn't in position. Perhaps it was a little weird, like what he was getting at, whether he could call one again.
And some of his teammates weren't either. Like he's doing this and going crazy.
Which led to his decision to then change the play with 13 seconds on the clock, and that's when things spun out of control. And again, Justin, I'm curious your thoughts on this because you said you had some Eberflus feelings on this. Like, that's when once you see the quarterback, the kid quarterback is drowning out there, that's when you have to call the timeout and reset things, even if that wasn't the initial plan.
Right.
My take on it is that Eberflus, when it happened and it initially went down and everyone goes to Twitter to say Matt Eberflus needs to be fired, this was egregious mismanagement of the clock, like he's not going to make it out of the weekend. That was how I felt right after the game too. But thinking about it more, listening to what he said, my hot take is that Eberflus is not to blame for this end of game mismanagement. Listen to especially what he said in that quote there. If they call timeout with less than 12 seconds left, then you're coming back on the field with no timeouts. It's 3rd and 26. So there's no situation where you can get into field goal range and spike the ball. There's no situation where you can get into field goal range and make a quick enough swap for the special teams unit to come on to get the field goal. Your only option, if you call that timeout before the snap at 12 seconds or so, is to try something short to the sideline, hope that gets completed, and if it doesn't, then you're going for a Hail Mary anyway, which is essentially what that last play amounted to in terms of likelihood of completion. But I think it's on Caleb Williams, and I agree there could be communication errors, and I agree the head coach has got to help his rookie quarterback, and maybe this is like something they needed to prep more in training camp when you're going through all the situations, and Eberflus shouldn't have called the timeout he called to prevent a delay of game at the very beginning of this drive when it's 3rd and 7 from the 4-yard line. Like, it's the 4-yard line. You get a delay of game, it's 2 yards, it's 3rd and 9. You're going to need those timeouts. That's where I think the blame for Eberflus stops. If he calls timeout as the clock's ticking down, like at some point he's got to trust that Caleb Williams is going to be aware enough to snap the ball, because if he calls that timeout, your chances of actually getting into field goal range plummet when you come back on the field with 12 seconds left. So I think this is more on Caleb Williams.
Like you're not like when we talk about from inside 12 seconds, and I don't think it's a hot take what you're saying. I think I see where you're coming from at that point, but it's the communication. And Eberflus's other comment was, we have to do a better job together. We have to do a better job together to re-rack that play, get it off, and then call the timeout. Like the idea that we're blaming this on the rookie quarterback, like I said, I think it's multiple fingers, but it's the communication, it's the overall approach to how to handle that game situation. And this is like the 3rd or 4th late last 10 second meltdown by the Bears. Like there's a theme here.
Yeah, that's for
By the
sure.
way, a couple of things also. Like if you call timeout immediately after the sack,
Right.
you have more time to
Right.
figure out what kind of, it doesn't have to be necessarily a sideline quick out. It could be something that you dial up, and then if you get a first down, you could spike it. Or, yeah, you could run out your field goal team. Not ideal.
3rd
on
and
4th
26.
down.
The chance
Right.
of getting a first down there are so
Right,
slim.
but you could still, you have options if, again, like I said, how many seconds? 26
30
seconds elapsed
yeah.
from the sack to
Right, that's the
when
issue.
he
I think there was 32
snapped
on the
ball.
clock when
There
he
was
got sacked.
32 on the clock.
And here's the other thing. It wasn't just a Hail Mary opportunity. We are living in a new era of kickers, and Cairo Santos has had his troubles, but it's a 58-yarder from that spot also. So it's not like he couldn't make it. His career high was 55, so it's unlikely, but they're kicking in a dome. All that said, they botched it. And the Bears, we were on Sky Sports this past weekend, Mark, and we went through the rookie quarterbacks, and my feelings then are even more underlined now, which is like, I feel very good about Caleb Williams.
Sure.
He just needs to get all these jokers around him out of the building, these coaches. It's a bad coaching staff. Don't want to take down Thomas Brown because he's just getting an opportunity now, and obviously that team heated up in the second half. But he needs a proper head coach to help guide his career, like what you're seeing in Denver, for instance, with Bo Nix, or even in Washington right now with Dan Quinn. And until that happens, I think this team will be stuck in mud. On the Lions side, Mark, this is one of those things. They're up to 11 wins now, and the injuries are mounting up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And that would be, they're playing on you would think they get like the mini bye after this. No, they're on Thursday Night Football next week, and it's a situation where who they lose? I'm going to mess up his name. Levi Zukarike, Josh Pascal, Malcolm Rodriguez all leave this game. They don't return. DJ Reader, Zadarius Smith, Mekhi Wingo all leave the game at various points. We know about the other injuries they've had on the defensive side. It's almost like, to me, what stops this Lions team from going all the way, or at least to the Super Bowl, It's if this injury bug is just relentless, and it's been pretty tough on that. That's the only thing I really have to take out of the game. Yes, could they have closed better? Could they have done better in the red zone, especially in the first half? Yeah. But they still won the game. But the injuries are, at a certain point, attrition can take its toll with this team.
That's because you keep, with a team like this, you're looking for the weakness. And, they're without Carlton Davis, Alex Anzalone, like Aiden Hutchinson. Zadarius Smith's been banged up, and he's someone that does get banged up here and there. And so you're already talking about second and third wave players in the game for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. And so when you have Chicago scoring 20 second half points, I mean, I can point to that because these are players that aren't practicing as much as the players above them and stuff. And I think also just like this was the rare Lions game where they seem pretty impenetrable to like kind of killer mistakes. But had Jahmyr Gibbs not fumbled deep in the red zone and had they scored there, I think this game we're not even talking about all this nonsense with Eberflus and the end of the game clock here. If Jake Bates doesn't miss that field goal, like that's 10 points off the board right there, at least 6. And we're in a different game and we're in a different world. So the thing for me, though, is that the Lions, with all this that we're talking about, find a way to survive. And in the way that, your Dan Campbell talked about it after the game, is like, we don't really care about the injuries. We don't really care about the mistake. We care about the mistakes, but it's like none of that's going to weigh on our mind. We found a way to win, and they do find a way to do that. They can win in multiple ways. So injuries aside, like I think it's another example of what this team's capable of, and it's, you said it, 8 years in a row on Thanksgiving, those Lions fans are, dealing with indigestion. And like tonight, Dan Campbell, I think they wanted this so bad, and they squeaked it out, and who cares what it looked like? They got it.
And last note, the running game for Detroit is just so great and so balanced with and I like the nickname too, Sonic and Knuckles, someone who's been forced to shell out like $37 on 2 occasions for both the Sonic films and the third one that apparently is coming out. But David Montgomery, 21 for 88, Jahmyr Gibbs, 9 for 87. They rushed for nearly 200 yards in total. It's just a relentless offense that hits you from every direction. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll hit the last 2 games. Stay right there. It's Feast Week on Underdog. To show their thanks, Underdog is stuffing. Get that? The lobby full of promos throughout Thanksgiving week, which means there will be plenty of opportunities to eat. Get that? We're talking profit boosts, discounts, gimme picks, you name it, starting on Wednesday, November 27th. And if you bring your friends to the table during our Refer a Friend event, you'll both be feasting with all the offers. Just scan the QR code on your screen to download the Underdog app or sign up with the code HTC, that's us, and receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit for our U.S. audience only. All right, welcome back. We're live.
I want to say one thing. I thought it was
Yes.
very professional of you to go do a outfit change for that ad read. Like that's almost like SNL level type stuff right there.
That's a commitment.
Impressive.
That's a commitment to the sponsors, Mark. By the way, yes, I did prepare a bird. It was a 16-pound bird. I think we have a photo, Gravedigger, that was snapped in my home. Look at this. And there's Bob.
Looks concerned.
My throwback podcast partner, Bob, judging, perhaps? It's hard to say.
Think so.
But the bird came out wonderfully, Mark. Did you eat meat today?
Well, so my girlfriend and I were here, and her.
Did you eat today, Mark?
Well, no, and her brother was visiting with his family from out of town. We had a delightful time, but there were kids there, and we had a typical. I wouldn't say that it kind of all happened together, so we didn't cook. I didn't cook a giant turkey or something. It wasn't that I wasn't trying not to. It just was a bit of more of a hang. It wasn't like Martha Stewart dropped in.
Wait, Mark, you didn't carve a turkey today?
No, but it wasn't.
Are you
it wasn't-
serious?
It wasn't with anti-sentiments toward it. It happened in a more relaxed way, which is fine with me. I've
that's
often
great.
eaten like Indian food on Thanksgiving Day in the years past when I was manning the game solo. So
You're an interesting man.
I know that you're slightly annoyed by the concept, but I didn't do.
Well,
any
I
of it
did.
to
I
annoy
tried to
anyone.
invite you
You
for
did.
Thanksgiving. You headed me off at the pass.
Well,
but
because
maybe
we
next
were
year.
having people,
Yeah.
we were of course, and then I turn around and like we're going to a concert together. So it's like
Here's a good question. Since you just Bob was in the photo, Garrett Miller asked, "Does Mark know the name of Dan and Bob's podcast?"
Of course I do. I've been on the Throwback Pod twice, I believe. In fact, a third episode that was canceled because I think did we get a little too juiced
got a
up
little
talking
bit.
Coldplay? Maybe I think it was.
We got.
Well, I like to lie a lot too.
We got a little buzzed in the old garage.
Well, we tried to do 2 episodes in a row, and I think it was the second one that went a little off the rails.
All right.
I don't think that at all.
Let's get back into the games. We'll go in order. So let's hit the game that has no standing on the Super Bowl picture, but it was played, and I mean, it would be weird to skip it. So now we're going to talk it. The Dallas Cowboys. Oh, it's been a hellacious ride at AT&T Stadium since last year's playoff loss to the Packers, and you knew they had to win eventually, Mark, because you can't just lose every game at home.
No.
You can't get blown out every time. Well, thankfully, the New York Giants exist in their present form. Now with Drew Lock at quarterback, things got no better for the G-Men, who struggled on offense throughout this game, allowing the Dallas Cowboys to get a 27-20 victory. The Giants add some lipstick to the pig in the fourth quarter with 10 points to make this look a little bit closer. But, you know, a take-care-of-business game for the Cowboys, who get a Cooper Rush touchdown pass. Rico Dowdle finished for 112 yards. And the Cowboys move to 5-7 and end a 6-game home losing streak with the dub.
If anything, it keeps, you were at the forefront. Well, you were alone on the not wanting to fork the Cowboys, and your argument remains alive. Now they are still.
Well, wait a second. Let's get the record right.
What?
The Cowboys. We forked the Cowboys, and I voted for it as well. 2 weeks later.
I thought we did.
They are not. They are not. Like, I'm not like, I wasn't watching this game thinking, ooh, I might be right about the Cowboys. The Cowboys are cooked. I mean, they're as cooked as the turkey that you just saw in that picture. But,
Yeah, well, and they play the Bengals next week, so that's 2 like kind of Dan Crushes about to engage in a cat fight there. But you're right, they're far out of it. They needed someone to step up, and there's so many parts of that team that just have failed to do that all season. And then DeMarvion Overshown, I thought today was just like the star. The interception, the pick six, just a beautiful play where he blows up like a running back.
He did everything right on that play.
He really did.
That was my favorite play of the day, Mark, where he kind of knocks Tracy, who's supposed to be blocking him, protecting the quarterback, kind of off his spot, runs through him, gets his hands up, knocks it in the air, tracks the ball, catches it, and takes it in. And I think part of the reason Locke's ball was thrown in a place that he was able to make a play on the ball is because he messed up what Tracy's route was supposed to be. Like, it was the perfect play, and I'm sure Mike Zimmer will maybe even smile when he watches that on tape.
Yeah,
maybe.
a weird, it's completely different, but in a weird way, it reminded me of the Cowboys a week ago on that onside kick where it's, knocked up, taken away, taken in for a touch, just like this sort of perfect athletic movement. And he was dominant today. He had a strip sack of Drew Lock. He picked up a strip sack of Drew Lock as well later in the game. So they needed that. And I think it helped that, thinking that you're going to get a big lift with Drew Lock in there. I mean, they were an absolute first half disaster. I mean, and it seems like a team that is playing the way that they spoke about their own team coming out in the locker room a week ago. It's a lost cause. It's tough to watch that. That's not what the NFL was thinking. I don't know what they thought the Giants would be at this point in the season when they're putting them on a national stage, but someone had to handle it. This was the game that I kind of was like watching out of the corner of my eye more. Maybe, when you got 9 hours of this and you're trying to deal with like a lot of other stuff, it's like, I'll track this. I'll see what's happening and pick up the big moments, but it did not delight me. It did not carry me on a magic carpet ride through the skies of Los Angeles.
Highly forgettable, the game, and people like me are like, all right, maybe I'll get a big CeeDee Lamb game out of this for my fantasy team.
Boy, he was a big problem.
He had 3 drops in the game, and then he's been battling clearly some type of shoulder issue that dates back several weeks now, and he had pulled himself out of this game, so they kind of had to do it without him. And on the other side of the ball, in terms of the number 1 wide receivers, Malik Neighbors, who, he was one of the guys that spoke out after the Giants' embarrassing loss last week, and he had no first half targets last week. So the Giants and Dable get him involved. He gets 8 first half targets. He makes a really nice catch down the sideline in the second half of this game. So it's just a reminder that the Giants do have some pieces as they try to figure out what's next. And Malik Neighbors is obviously one of them. And I guess my only other thought, honestly, on the game, Marcus, I think it's a game we don't need to dwell on because it really does not matter because these are two teams having a tough year. Although the Cowboys, not that I'm holding out hope, Mark, but 5-7. Okay, if you beat the Bengals next week, maybe you maybe you get in the graphic that says in the hunt. A win next week would get the Cowboys back in the hunt graphic, perhaps for a wild
Well, I would
card
say one
spot.
thing based on what happens on Sunday, there could be 10 teams with better records than them in the NFC. So like a hunt, like I don't know how many people are hunting, but like they're maybe
In
they're
the
part
hunt.
of right. They're in the hunting party, but they're in the back.
Yeah, they're still very much in the deep distance. They are ass. But I would say Dable needs to avoid embarrassments. We talked about his job security, and this loss, again, it was not as competitive as 27-20 might lead you to believe, but it wasn't some, absolute blowout that leads to more bad quotes in the locker room. It's almost like what he needs is things to just go quiet, win or lose, just quiet. So this
Right.
on some level for Brian Dable and Joe Shane, I guess, if you want to look at it from a broader perspective, like it's a bit of a victory that this wasn't a hugely humiliating, embarrassing defeat in Dallas. It's just another L in a long season of L's.
Yeah, at best. And that's the state of the Giants right now, this like precious franchise that we've touted verbally for over a decade on this show and the past one. It's like you're in tatters right now and you look chaotic to us. You've got a lot of answering to do, a lot of questions to answer.
Speaking of questions, here's the drunk cow of death. And cow is like big, Thanksgiving is a big day for the cow. It's like, go eat your turkey.
Right.
Leave me the hell alone for just like a day. Like, get off my ass for a day.
Exactly. And that we should celebrate that for them.
Who is more likely to save their job, Dable or McCarthy? Good question, Mark. You answer it.
I think McCarthy. I also think like it's a completely unsolved mystery because if the Cowboys were to win 4 of 5, like if they, you know what I mean? Like he could maybe convince, is he the real problem? Like, I don't think he's the solution, but Dable to me feels like he already knows he's gone. Like that, I just see a look in his eye where it's like, I don't think the Maras are like the general manager's gone. And so what does that leave the head coach?
Which is funny because, and you heard it from James Palmer and people around the Giants, there's a general feeling that Dable has a good chance to survive here. Maybe not good, but a solid chance of surviving if he, like we're saying, can just avoid this from turning into total farce down the stretch. As for McCarthy, it's the same thing. Like, I haven't really been kidding, although maybe it's been framed as kidding. Like, I don't know where Jerry Jones is in terms of his ability to understand the actual realm that the Dallas Cowboys exist in. So while it would make sense from a different viewpoint that, oh yeah, obviously the McCarthy thing, they've given it 4 or 5 years. It has not yielded the results they were expecting. They're having a really bad year. It's time to go in a different direction. I don't know if that's the way 83-year-old Jerry Jones thinks anymore. Jerry Jones
You think I'm an idiot? Do you?
Jerry Jones might think that Mike McCarthy is still one of the top 10 coaches in the NFL. And by the way, it might help that a guy like Tom Brady is doing this telecast, doing his, by the way, his, what are we, week 13? His 11th shitty game out of 13 games this season, it feels like, as you pay him $37 million a year. Like, Brady's out here telling 30 million people watching the game that Mike McCarthy is one of the best coaches in football. It wouldn't stun me if McCarthy survived. And
I'm with you. I think it's also like, it's just a guess, but I'm with you. I think of the two.
I think it's more likely McCarthy survives. But I don't think that's maybe the general consensus out there, but that's the heed the call consensus. And that's good enough. Anything else, or can we move?
No, we can move. I mean.
All right. What's going on with this chat? What's going on in the chat? Pharmakinetic. I had Chinese food today. I understand, Mark.
Well, I understand that. Like, I mean, it's not, there needs to be infrastructure around you to have these, like, and a desire by everyone involved to have these larger meal. And I think the larger meal is wonderful, but it just doesn't always, it's not just guaranteed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm just pissing into like a heavy windstorm when I make that comment to you. So.
I don't really care. Moods. Help. My girlfriend can't stop saying the wiki did like Travolta. Good call, Moods, because I was saying it today because Wicked is the number one movie in America.
Talented.
The one and
Please welcome the wickedly talented, one and only Adele Dazeem.
Like he fucking stumbles on every goddamn
laboring
part of
through
that intro. Anyway, but Wicked's huge right now, and of course, Adele Dazeem played the Wicked Witch in the original Broadway.
Those
production.
two actresses seem to adore each other from what the clips that I'm seeing.
Oh yeah, it's a real love fest between those two stars
From
of
what
the
I'm
silver
seeing,
screen, Mark.
I can't confirm.
Look at
From
you
what- I mean,
taking all their publicists, carefully curated, on-camera moments as Bible. It could be
not biblical, but it just seems like you sometimes you sense that there might be some space between
the wickedly talented one in the. Okay, let's head to the final game of the evening, played in the cold, unforgiving environment of Lambeau Field, at least if you play in southern Florida. Oh, we're doing a show. So I like this part. Green Bay Packers keep rolling. Man, that NFC North. What a slobber knocker of a division. You could be 9-3. And what are they in third place, Mark, in that division right now?
Right, they're low down in the playoff seeds because of the division.
They're 9-3 because they took care of business against a Miami Dolphins team that I had high hopes that they were going to play well in this game. And Mark, I know you were saying you were kind of sick of hearing all the narratives around the Dolphins and playing in cold weather.
Well,
but you got to actually do it. You got to show up and you got to play a real football game to make people take you seriously. And the Dolphins couldn't do it. They fall 30-17 in a game that really from the start, the Packers put up 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, ran away with this thing. They were up 24-3 at halftime. And, I guess we started with the losing team in the first game. We'll start with the losing team in the last game. The Dolphins fall to 5-7. Like the Cowboys, they now are just kind of hoping to be in the hunt graphic because the playoffs seem far away. You kind of had to. This was in a lot of ways it felt like their season, like where they could make a stand, shut some people up, and really announce yourself as a team that could play in the postseason. And yet all the familiar stuff popped up. The Tua was not throwing the ball well, missing wide open receivers. The Packers clearly the most physical team. It was a good job. Who it was? Tirico and Jason Garrett, I think.
Yes.
Pointing out that how often when there's a collision, it was the Dolphin player falling back, and it was the Packers either defender or the ball carrier just trucking over his opponent. Because one team was down to clown in that type of scene, and one team was not ready for it. So the Packers take care of business and keep pace in the North, and the Dolphins further recess here into the distance without doing anything but reinforcing that tired old story that they can't play in cold weather.
Well, the reason I was tired of the narrative is because I'd mentioned that they had only really played under McDaniel in 2 true cold weather games. But look, this was a hard no-show, and visible to the eye, I saw like a lack of effort. I just thought that they didn't want to be there. They didn't want to be there after the game was about a quarter in, where they realized, wait a minute, this team is here to beat us up. And for me, I've always been a Mike McDaniel fan in the sense that I think he's very creative. He comes from the Shanahan tree. We all know this. Like, I thought he's made the most of Tua, and that's all true. I think he has. But in these situations, his team, and I don't know if it's the kind of thing where as the season wears on, whatever the messaging is or whatever the room by room coaching is in the position groups, the entire team did not show up tonight. And I think that's got to be as concerning as there is. And I'll just flip it real quick to the Packers on one thing.
Well, can we hold there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since you bring up McDaniel, and I feel the same way about Mike McDaniel. I think he's an interesting figure in the league. His schemes have been proven to be effective at times, very effective at times. He's entertaining. He's got a good sense of humor. He's someone who's overcome personal demons, and that's an inspirational thing. But I thought he also, the head coach, sometimes represents the team. And as this team is going into the tunnel, down 24-3. He's, by contract, he's contractually bound or whatever the agreements are to speak with the NBC crew and take a look at Mike McDaniel, how he looks and also how he sounds before he runs into the locker room.
Mike, your offense struggling on this cold night. How do you get them going?
Well, we just need to stop having self-inflicted wounds. That's the biggest thing. We keep getting behind the sticks because our operation isn't clean. We got a lot of things to clean up at halftime.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
He's so cold. He's slurring his words.
Yep.
And that's the way that team played. Like, they couldn't wait to run into that locker room. And they had and not only that and Tua's accuracy falling off. And when they got down in that situation, Mark, when they had a chance to get back in the game in the second half and they're near the goal line and it's 3rd and goal from the 1, and and they know, and Mike McDaniel knows, I got nothing in this playbook that can handle this situation right now where I need to get physical and smash mouth. I gave it to HN once. That didn't work. I tried a little misdirection pass. That didn't work. I'm going to drop back to pass and with an empty formation on 4th down, and I get sacked. And it's like, yeah, this isn't where the Miami Dolphins are comfortable.
No, and he should know Matt LaFleur as well as anyone. I thought Tua tonight was completely off his game, especially trying to throw deeper. Like, there's just off target. It's just a complete lack of preparation. They just looked like they weren't prepared. And, like, on top of it, like, to stack on top of that, they were a team that missed, I think going into the fourth quarter, they mentioned they had missed 13 tackles. And that has a lot to do with Josh Jacobs, has a lot to do with the style of the Packers offense. But it's just like, you can't no-show like this. Like, I can't take you seriously. Like, you are out of my mind at this point as a competitive team, because you're going to face this environment, this game, this kind of team that's built for later in the year. And it raises just very alarming, concerning questions about the entire mission statement of the Miami Dolphins.
And on the Packers side, one last note that is, yes, under McDaniel, it's a limited sample size, Mark, but they've lost their past 11 regular season games or postseason games in which the kickoff temperature has been below 40 degrees. They haven't won a game in that situation since 2016.
Wow.
And so as the Dolphins struggle with the understanding that the questions that they're sick of getting are only going to intensify, the Packers, who are playing 3 games in a 12-day stretch, they beat the hell out of the Niners 38-10 on Sunday. They take care of business in a very thorough way against a Dolphins team that badly needed this game. I thought it was a very impressive game tonight by Green Bay all the way around. And now they have one of the most important games of their season on Thursday night against a Lions team that we just talked about, got pretty beat up on Thanksgiving. And maybe you're catching the Lions at a pretty decent time. So I feel like the arrow is very up on the Packers right now. I like the way they're playing. And so much of that, Mark, is if Josh Jacobs is playing. I know he won a rushing title. I've never seen Josh Jacobs look this good.
Not at all.
His combination of explosiveness, his physicality, when he stuck his foot in the ground and laid waste to that Miami defender and then just shot down the sideline for 50 yards or whatever it was. I mean, he's just a complete running back, and he's so fun to watch. And now that Jordan Love is starting to look a little bit more like the Jordan Love we remember taking the league by storm last year, he's been smarter with the ball, on target, leading this offense in a more controlled nature. I mean, this is a very well-rounded, dangerous team. The NFC North is pretty badass, I got to say.
I thought it was appropriate to 3-stack the graphic where you've got Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and you put Josh Jacobs in there. I've always been kind of felt like he's going to be good, then bad, then good. He's kind of hot and cold. He was on a bad Raiders team. He's in the perfect system that knows how to maximize his gifts. He seems as powerful and mighty to me as he has ever in his career. And it's 2 weeks in a row where he absolutely bludgeoned and took a defense out of the game by the end of the first half. And with the Niners, I know that was a weakened team to some degree, but by the end of the first quarter, and just like kind of for once, the Packers feel very complete, because for years we'd say, well, the offense has Aaron Rodgers, they've got all these players, and they can go up and score, 30-something points, but then the defense is going to let you down. 2 weeks in a row, Jeff Hafley has completely disintegrated Shanahan-type offenses, and they're scattered all around the league. And it's like, this is a huge development, the fact that their defense is playing the way it is, and that they, like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle each had, I think, 1 target apiece heading towards the half. Like, they were taken out of the game. And so this is a complete team. And like the way that the Packers rounded into shape, Jordan Love especially, like last season, it's happening again, but in a different way. And they're really built to pummel people down the stretch. So that Detroit game is just a massive watch, because that's going to be a huge test of both teams. And I don't really, even if the Packers were to lose that in some sort of fashion, I still think they are a team that's built for the playoffs. And Matt LaFleur finally has what he wants.
I'm glad. I like to see it as a call to arms. About a week and a half ago on the show, it was like, who is going to step up and really make this not feel like a coronation for the Lions? And I still think the Lions are the best team in football and the best team in the NFC. But this version of the Packers and the Eagles continuing to play at a very high level is really there you go. There's 3 big teams there, and you're right. It's a huge game, and that division is wide open despite all these teams dominating. What we got? The Lions. I'm gonna do live math. This is even worse. The Lions are 11-1. The Vikings are what? 8-2, 9-2.
Let's take a look here.
What are they?
9-2.
9-2, and the Packers are now what? 9-3. Pressure math. 11 plus 9 is 20, 29 and 6. Those 3 teams, so they're fighting it out to the very end. And meanwhile, with this Dolphins loss, the Bills can clinch the AFC East title with a win on Sunday against the 49ers. So, a study in contrast, the Dolphins obviously were never going to catch Buffalo in the first place, but it just goes to show that was they needed that win to get to 500. They couldn't do it, and now they have an uphill climb going forward.
Well, they are their record. I mean, and they, it's. I'm comfortable with that. I don't want to fantasize about teams that aren't showing it to me, and this was the end.
Okay. Well, before you say that, let me just take a look at the schedule for the Dolphins. There's a difference between like whether you could take them seriously or whether they're still going to be relevant in the hunt. They get the Jets next week, so that can get them to 6-7. At Houston, who knows what you get with Houston?
Right.
Home Niners, who knows who the Niners
That's true.
are?
Well,
at Cleveland. At Jets, they have a very soft remaining schedule.
Edit what I just said out of the show. Can we do that?
But the problem is the Dolphins are soft, or at least in certain situations and setups. Justin, you have anything to add, kind sir?
I have some comments here. We could answer some questions.
All right, it's a good way to close the Thanksgiving ep. And again, talking about Thanksgiving, what we're thankful for is people on this night, late at night, along for the ride on this stream.
Also, some
Very
people
cool.
in England telling us it's 5:30 in the morning, which would be 5:42 at this point.
You people are mad for it, and we love you. We're gonna come see you. Mark and I, with Justin, have something big planned for the UK and surrounding territories in the summer. I'll leave it at that. Yep. John Fiamara asks, how many Tito's consumed today? I had a Bloody Mary watching the Lions game while turkey, and we used Tito's. Daddy's handle was used there. That was it, though. I had a couple beers, did not ingest too heavily because I'm a professional. We were doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And also, I got wicked hammered yesterday.
Well,
so,
right.
Yeah,
So you're.
So I don't do back-to-backs anymore. That's like, football is completely different, but basketball. But like, like Justin, your boy, Dirk Nowitzki, when he got older.
Football is completely different than basketball.
He didn't do back-to-backs anymore. Once he got to a certain age, they found ways for, rest days. That's what I have to do. And that's why I'll be sleeping in 24 minutes.
Yeah. I had a beer during the early game, right? But then it's kind of like we go on lock. I did get a text from Justin around 4:15 saying, "High as a kite, motherfucker." So I don't know what that meant. I can only translate what that meant. It's fiction.
Philip Goldfinch asks, with the NFL.
Well, I like to lie a lot too.
Okay. With the NFL owning every day, is Dan looking forward to the Black Friday game tomorrow? I don't have a big issue with the Black Friday game. It's fine. In America, this is essentially a long holiday weekend. But if you think that Zuzzer and the Storm and the Gravedigger are rolling back another show tomorrow when we've already done 5 shows this week to talk about the goddamn Raiders. No, we will roll that into the Sunday recap show.
Isn't that what's great too? It is the rare occurrence. It's pretty rare. Like that in fact, it's the only game this season so far, I think, where we get to go just watch it and not have to, scribble notes, take mental notes, and discuss it after. We can just go watch it. So I will relish it. Now, the fact that the Raiders involved maybe put a gun to my head.
Also, I've started now to look at this with such dread. This Red One, The Rock trying to save Santa who got kidnapped movie.
Yeah.
I've heard so many bad things about it. I had agreed to take my sons 2 weeks ago, the day after Thanksgiving. I was already on the fence just because it was getting such terrible reviews. And then someone said something that really haunts me. I heard someone explain Red One as a knockoff version of a Marvel movie. And you have to understand, the greatest Marvel movie is something that I run from. If you're telling me it is a knockoff version of a Marvel movie.
Yeah, well, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. I had bought tickets to take my 2 boys to that, and then I pivoted, and I was like, look, this is a little extra because I don't know what I'm going to get here. And they're a little bit older than your children, so it's a bit of a different situation. But I took them to Gladiator 2, and like a couple of moments in that where I was like, all right, but listen, I was like, I'm enjoying this, and
It's
like
yes.
it was a.
Sons, this is what a windpipe looks like when it's slashed wide open by a sword.
Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
This comment from Mark Davis
Yeah.
here, Kiwi Bills.
Wait, you don't like Cinema
Sorry.
Corner? What do you don't like Cinema
Well,
Corner?
I was just trying to move it along, 48 minutes.
Because I had one more
Thanksgiving night.
take. Is that
Okay, go ahead.
That then I was thinking about Wicked with the wickedly talented Ariana Grande.
That's about a witch or something, right? A musical.
Yes,
number?
A Wizard of
Wickedly
Oz is about a
talented.
witch. But then someone told me it's 2 hours and 45 minutes, and again with the goddamn length in the movies, another
what are we
take.
doing? I know.
And that's part 1 of 2, Mark. Like,
No.
I don't know whose fault it is. Maybe it's that goober that did the Lord of the Rings. Like now every movie is 3.5 hours long.
He is not to blame. That was 2 decades ago. It's like they cannot get out of their own way and not create a movie that's 2 hours or 3 hours and 12 minutes. It's like, and also, by the way, hey, come sit down for 45 minutes of previews, and you got Nicole Kidman doing the whole thing about like she's in the theater alone, like she's Little Orphan Annie. It's like enough with all this. So
A 1 hour and 47-minute movie is fine. Hollywood. No one's complaining. Says the guys that do like 2 hour preview shows on Thursdays. All right, one more. Mark Davis asks, Kiwi Bills here. That's Australian, right? No, New Zealand. What is Kiwi?
yeah,
It's in the
New
keep
Zealand.
reading.
Your Kiwi would be New Zealand.
Keep reading.
Okay.
Great live show, boys. Let's see more. Come visit Australia.
I
Go
always
Bills.
associated Kiwi with New Zealand more than Australia, but maybe it's a Venn diagram.
wanna
I
go
brought this
Australia.
comment up because Kiwi Bills is the Twitter user who made the Thanksgiving dinner graphic that I reshared today on socials.
Yeah, I shared that on my own.
Mark, you are a mensch. And I mean Mark with a K.
Big hit. Oh, yeah, well, right, that one.
That
Yeah.
was unbelievable. We resurfaced that graphic for our Heed the Call Instagram page today.
What I love is that it initially didn't
and
include
you won't see a
Dave
dime.
Damashek.
Right.
And then there was an edit too where, to his credit, but it was like, that's the kind of thing that Dave will think about for probably 14 or 15 years. So
That is, he'll struggle with that. He'll struggle
Yeah.
with that. All right. I love it. I love it, Mark. I'm very thankful
I am too.
to do this show with you and Justin and all the people that have heeded the call since our launch. This was our 76th episode, something like that.
75.
75th episode. How about that? Can you believe it? The grind is real, and we're so fortunate to do what we do. So thank you so much for giving us a great life. We'll be back on, like we said, Sunday, the flagship program, recapping every game Sunday and the Black Friday affair between the Chiefs and the Raiders. And if you want more of us, if you somehow want to see something else from us this week, get on the Patreon, patreon.com/heedthecall. Subscribe and check out our draft of Week 13. Mark, final word goes to you.
The season begins now, according to Bill Parcells and Parcells Types.
See, you were succinct this time, and you nailed it.
I did.
I loved it. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Happy Thanksgiving. Till next time, do what you must. Heed the call.